right, in this lesson we're going to learn about the quadratic formula, maybe one of the most famous algebraic formulas. Okay, so the quadratic formula is used to find zeros of quadratic functions. So let's kind of look back at what we've already learned. We have learned how to find quite a few things. We've learned how to find the vertex. We've learned that if we were given a graph like this one, or if we're given a quadratic function. And same thing for the line of symmetry. We've learned how to find the equation for that if we're given a graph or if we were given a quadratic function. We've learned how to find the zeros from a graph, but we have not learned how to find the zeros if we are given a quadratic function like 2x squared plus 4x minus 7. So then if that's all I'm given, how would I find the zeros? And that's what the quadratic formula is for. Okay, so here is the quadratic formula, and especially when you first see it, it looks a little scary. So first, you have a quadratic function. Let's zoom in here a little bit on this. Quadratic formula says if ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, then the zeros of that function are right here. And the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So this looks big and kind of scary, but really once you've practiced and used this a couple times, it's not that bad. Your a is just whatever's in front of the x squared term, so this is your a. Your b is just whatever in front of the x, and then your c is your constant term. So as long as you have those numbers, you should be good. And so again, those coefficients should just be numbers, no x's in there or anything like that. So then you would plug them into this formula and you would get your zeros. In other words, remember zeros? Zeros are where it crosses the x-axis, so zeros are these things. So that's what we're looking for here. When you do this, make sure your quadratic function is in standard form before you start, and it's set equal to 0. And that's what I wrote down here is make sure the quadratic function equation is set equal to 0 before you use the quadratic formula. So anyways, let's try this. Okay, so find the zeros of 6x squared plus 12x minus 18 equals 0 using the quadratic formula, and then round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So first, our a value is this right here. Okay, so in this case, a is 6. Don't write 6x squared, it's just a coefficient, so just 6. Your b is what's in front of the x term, so in this case it's positive 12, so we're going to write 12. And then your c is your constant term, and notice that this is negative 18, not 18, so make sure you have that negative in there or your answers here down at the bottom are going to be wrong when you use the quadratic formula. So here we go. Let's maybe switch to a different color. So now I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and we're going to just follow this formula. So here we go. X is equal to, b is 12. So here you can see it says opposite of b. That's how I usually say it. It's going to be negative 12. If this over here said negative 17, then you would write positive 17 over here. Okay, now plus or minus, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but for right now, just write it down. And now I'm going to write a bunch of stuff under here. Everything else that you're plugging in, make sure you put it in parentheses. So I'm going to go 12 in parentheses squared minus 4. That 4 is always there. Okay, so that's just part of the formula. Same with the 2 at the bottom there. So 4 times a, the a is 6, and then times c, and our c is negative 18. Notice those are in parentheses. Now we're going to draw a line all the way across here. That's all over 2 times a, and again our a is 6. So this is the setup. This is the most important part of the quadratic formula, using the quadratic formula, is just taking these upright numbers here and putting them in to the formula in the right spot. Okay, so now we are going to take and figure out what this equals. In order to do that, we need to figure out what this number underneath the square root is first. So that will be your first step, is to get that and type that into your calculator. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to type this in parentheses 12 squared minus 4 times 6. Notice again in parentheses, and then times negative 18. Make sure you use negative 18, not minus 18. And you'll notice we get 576. So now I'm going to write this same thing down again. So I'm going to rewrite this so that we stay organized, because there's a lot going on. And underneath this now is we're instead of all of that, we're going to write 576 now. You can also simplify the bottom of this now. 2 times 6 is 12. It's pretty easy to just go ahead and simplify that right now. Okay, so now your next step is to take this and find the square root of 576 and then write that number down. So we're going to do that right now on our calculator. So we're going to go square root. It's right above in blue on the x squared, so you're going to have to press second first because it's blue, and then this x squared. Now notice you should see the square root symbol, and then 576. And we get the square root of 576 is 24. So we're going to write x equals negative 12 plus or minus. Now instead of what we circled there, instead of the square root of 576, we are now going to write 24. And that's still all over 12. Okay, now this right here represents 2 answers. Okay, so I'm going to use those and write those out so you know what those 2 are. Okay, so the first one is x. We're going to do the negative 12, just the plus. It says plus or minus. We're going to do just plus 24 divided by 12. So that's going to be one of our answers. Now the other one is going to be the minus. So I'm going to go over here. And our other answer will be x is equal to negative 12 minus 24 over 12. So that's what the plus or minus means. It really means 2 separate answers. So you're going to write them out separately. Now, let's do this pink one first. When you do this, you want to do this, figure out what this top equals first. So you're going to go negative 12 plus 24. If you type that into your calculator, you're going to get 12. And then you have over 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1. Okay, so that's one of my answers. So now let's find the other one. Okay, let's do this here. We have negative 12 minus 24. That is negative 36. And then don't forget to divide it by 12. Now you're going to type that into your calculator. Negative 36 divided by 12 is negative 3. Okay, so what does this mean? These are my 2 zeros. Remember, this means this is where this quadratic function crosses the x-axis. So if we go back to this, it opens up. We don't know a ton about it, but we know it opens up. It's going to cross the x-axis at 1 and at negative 3. That's what that means. But these are right here are my 2 answers. And we just solved using the quadratic formula. We found the zeros. Okay? And that's the quadratic formula. That's it.